So I was, when we first signed you, I was thinking, what kind of panel can we do with Bill Paxton? And so I thought, well, Michael Biehn's coming, so we've got like Terminator and Tombstone. But then we've got like Near Dark. And like just off the top of my head, there's like half a dozen at least movies that we could have done just with the other people at this show. You are amazing.
You could do, I guess, 3 degrees of Bill Paxton.
Pretty much, yeah. Well, now it's 1 degree.
Please don't, though. I feel bad for Kevin. That's gonna haunt him to the grave.
So, I mean, you haven't done a whole lot of these conventions. You've done a few.
I've never done the professional signing. This is the first time.
First time.
And,
Yes.
hey, thank you. Thank you. My accountant thanks you. My wife thanks you. My children's children thank you. It's better than the SAG pension, let me tell you. What was I going to say? Oh, yes. This is significant for me to be here because this is the biggest reunion of the Aliens cast since we were all together when we made the movie and when the movie premiered 27 years ago, I believe. And so Sigourney Weaver's coming in tonight. And, they're all here. They know you're here.
So, the thing that has always intrigued me about you, it's actually your face. You have like these amazing facial expressions, and you're so expressive, and you have these amazing characters. How do you find the energy to sustain that?
Sometimes it's difficult. I've had my teeth fixed since Weird Science and some of those. The gap was too big. And when we did Apollo 13, I had some holes in the side of my head that I had to kind of puttied up. But you know, I've always liked characters that were theatrical. That are, you know, I think you should try and relish the part if you can. And I've played a lot of stalwart characters, and to me, they're not as much fun as playing a villain or more of a character part. You know, I'd much rather play Chet than a lot of other roles. Yes. Chet is a god. I can do a lot with this. But I've lately been getting to do some fun stuff. I've got a movie coming out opposite Tom Cruise and Emily Blunt called Edge of Tomorrow. And I think I got the job because it's got a lot of DNA and aliens. And they needed somebody to say, "Game over, man."
I don't know what that's from.
Something I can't remember. But that's coming out June 6th, and I play a platoon sergeant, and we're on the eve of a counter-invasion. An alien horde has taken Europe, kind of like an infestation, and we're going to try to storm the beaches of Normandy with an allied force and, you know, get a little payback against these creatures. But Tom Cruise's character keeps dying in the battle and then waking up, and he's got to happen all over again. And I'm his platoon sergeant. I've been told he's a coward who has been impersonating an officer, and I'm not mad at him. I'm telling him, "Oh, you're going to be born again, son." I'd say something like, you know, combat is the great redeemer, the fiery crucible in which the only true heroes are forged.
Is there a role that you've done that you have found particularly life-changing, profound, something that's really affected you more than maybe other roles?
Well, I'm taking on a role right now that's already been kind of profound, in so much as it's a distant family relation. I'm going to play Sam Houston, the father of the Republic of Texas, another western town just south of here. And I've been doing a lot of research on that. His mother's name was Elizabeth Paxton, and she was from Rockbridge County, Virginia, where my family's from. And I've been doing a lot of research on that. I was just down in Huntsville, Texas, where Sam Houston lived and where the museum is, and I'm going down to Virginia next week to do some more research. As far as roles that have been profound for me, I think probably working on Apollo 13, and Titanic were probably two of the most profound. Not so much because of the characters I played, but because of the experience of making these movies. Apollo 13 was amazing. Jim Lovell and Fred Hayes were around when we made the film. It's kind of an interesting story. I went down and they arranged for me to fly down to Cape Kennedy and spend the day with Fred Hayes. That's the character I played in that movie. And he was the LEM pilot. And he was driving around, we were driving around, and there's two Saturn rockets that they never fired. The last mission was 17. Gene Cernan was the last astronaut to step off the moon. And the program, they had 18 ready to go, and they had 19 ready to go, and they canceled the program after 17. And one of the rockets is laying on its side at Cape Kennedy, and one of them is down in Houston. And as we drove by the rocket, he said, he just kind of said wistfully, said, "Yeah, that's my rocket." And that was a kind of a wild thing to hear that guy say. Obviously on Titanic, what an incredible phenomenon being a part of that has been. But a couple of years after the movie, Jim Cameron invited me to go on a second expedition to the wreck of the ship, and he asked me to go along. I thought he was kind of putting me on, and I never dreamed I'd actually go down to the wreck itself, because it's quite an ordeal to get down there in these Russian near submarines. But I thought I was going to be on the ship and maybe, throw a blanket around him and give him a margarita. Hey, how was it down there? 2.5 miles down into the abyss. And he said, I want you to go on some of the dives. I'm like, yeah, sure, okay. And I actually tried to get Lloyd's of London to insure me, and they wouldn't. But I got to tell you, I went on the first dive, and it was pretty amazing. I was kind of freaking out when they put me in, when they closed the hatch, and you're kind of bobbing around, and it's like being basically the size of the interior of an old Volkswagen Beetle, and it takes about 2.5 hours to descend 12,500 feet into the North Atlantic. I mean, this is a place where, after a couple hundred feet, the sunlight doesn't even penetrate it. And by the time you get down to the bottom, they've turned off they've just kept a basic monitoring systems, but they turn all the power off, so you basically kind of do this free fall to the bottom of the ocean. And then we power everything up. You hope it's all going to power up, and then they shine the light down. We're about 10 feet above the seafloor, and it really looks like the moon down there. And we look up at the radar, and you see this kind of knife shape, and that's the bow. They like to try to land away from the ship and then motor up to it. And as we motored up to it, I looked, there were these little portholes, and not very wide, and I looked up, and I'm looking at the bow of the Titanic, and I'm thinking, my God, there it is. And even now, I feel like it's an experience that I felt like I dreamt more than I really did. But that was something. But the story is that the second dive, I went down. It was great. I got back. I survived. I still had young children at home, and the next thing I knew, Jim said, I need you to go. We're going out again. I want you on that dive too. And I had a little apprehension. I felt like I had kind of cheated death. I mean, we're talking about Davy Jones' locker, and the price of admission is usually your life. I was thinking, I don't know. So I had a really rough night the night before, and we all had a breakfast in the galley the next morning, and I was looking for a moment to kind of pull Jim Cameron aside and say, hey Jim, I'm just really not up for this today, and I kind of got some pain and so. And I go up, I pull Jim aside. I said, Jim, and he says, he goes, well, you're going. I go, I am, Jim? Yeah, you're going. See, the Russians are very superstitious, he tells me, about any last minute changes. Unless you've, severed a limb, you're going. But I have to say that I was kind of relieved to have the decision made for me. And that turned out to be an incredible dive, except when we came back, the sea state had gone from calm to 15 feet. And by the time we surfaced, they launch and they recover these mirrors in 2 different time intervals, so about a half hour apiece. But by the time we got to the surface, they hadn't been able to recapture and bring the other mirror on the ship, so we just bounced up and down. And it was really like being in a washing machine, and I don't think I've ever thrown up so much in my life. Let's just say when they opened that hatch.
I was going to ask if you got seasick, and I thought that would be too personal.
No, nothing's too personal here. I feel like we're having such an intimate conversation.
Let's go right for the serious stuff.
All right.
So did you have an indication when you read the scripts for Titanic and for Apollo 13 that these would be special films for you?
Yes, absolutely. I actually tried out for Kevin's part, Jack Swigert, and this was one of those things. I remember it was close to a birthday, and I thought, and I felt like I think I read a couple of times for it, and I heard that Kevin Bacon was probably gonna get the offer, and I just thought, gee, how many more times can I go through this and get very close to a part and almost get cast and then it not happen? But at that age, I think I was already, I don't even know when that was. I was probably already in my late 30s, so yeah, I was probably like 38, and so it was a little too late to, go into medicine or rocket science. So I remember getting a call from my agent saying that Ron Howard wanted to call me. And I thought, oh, he's going to probably say, gee, good job, but I'm going the other way. So I was told when this call was going to come in, and so I get the call from Ron. Hey, Bill, it's Ron. And Ron Howard, okay, cool. And I went ahead and decided to take the high road, so I said, I think Kevin's a good choice for Jack. And he goes, no, that's not why I'm calling you. That's not why I'm calling you. What would you think about playing Fred Hayes? And so now I'm like trying to, get my wheels turning around because it's a completely different character. And I'd say, well, yeah, sure, Fred Hayes would be great. And he said, well, look, I won't keep you hanging long, but I just wanted to call you and to see if you were into it. And I go, great, Ron. He said, okay. And I hung up, and the next day I got the part. I don't know what happened, but I think another actor was kind of in line for it, and somehow they couldn't make his deal or whatever. And that was a life-changing experience for sure, absolutely.
I think that's the only movie that I cry at the end with sheer relief. That, it doesn't matter how many times I watch it, at the very end I'm in tears just out of the relief that you guys made it. Spoiler.
That's me. I get worked up about the launch sequence, and Tracy Reinert, Penny Marshall, and Carl Reiner's daughter, she plays my wife in that. And there's a great shot as the thing's taking off, and it cuts to them, and they're the wives, they're in the stand, and Kathleen Quinlan, and she's doing this thing where she's crying, and that always gets me. But I have another Apollo 13 story that I don't think I've really told in a long time, but we all were invited to the White House. And this was when President Clinton's administration was riding high, and they had a special dinner and a screening in the White House screening room. And I got to go up there, and Tom Hanks was there with his wife, and Kevin Bacon, and Gary Sinise, Ron Howard, Lou Wasserman, the famous the last mogul of MCA Universal, he was there. And we all went downstairs. We had this dinner downstairs, and then we went to the White House room, and we all went to use the bathroom. And there I am at these 3 standing urinals, and there I am between Tom Hanks and President Clinton. They're just talking away, and I couldn't even urinate. That was another story. I didn't mean to get into that. But then we go into the screening room, and also I forgot to mention John Glenn was there, and then there were a few other astronauts there. And John Glenn is sitting at the end of the row. They're just small rows of about, oh, I